Welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. Together, we explore topics of interest to in-house lawyers. We cover career, practice tips, leadership, the future of law, mental health, legal tech, and much, much more. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They're an act of courage. Want to get the most from this conversation? Ask questions, comment, like, follow, say hello. In short, engage. Finally, have fun. In-house legal practice is a serious business, but you don't have to take yourself seriously. Let's begin. Here's your host, Olga Mack.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of our special live series, Notes to My Legal Self. I am Olga Mack, host of Notes to My Legal Self, for the special series celebrating the launch of our new American Bar Association book, Visual Literacy for Lawyers, a guide to enhancing your contract and practice. I am thrilled to be co-hosting it with Tessa Manuello, one of the co-authors of the book. You can download a full ABA Books companion guide for free right now at visualiqforlawyers.com, so you can follow along for 20 plus real world case studies in action. I'm so excited about today's episode. Having spent my career as general counsel, legal tech executive, and advocate for corporate transformation, I see a huge paradox every single day. One of the biggest misconceptions in legal tech is that buying better software will solve workload problem. And here's the highlight answer. It rarely does. Automating broken process usually creates really just faster friction, not better outcome. And so the real opportunity is to rethink how legal work gets done, and the use of technology, including AI, to support better process. And so without further ado, I'm going to welcome all the guests and my co-hosts, Tessa, Lucy, and Aneta, to the show, and for them to introduce themselves, and we can kick it off.
Yeah, that's so spot on, Olga. Thank you for having me as a co-host, and it's been such an honor to be one of the co-authors of this book. As we all know, in this age of AI, legal departments are rushing to integrate new legal tech tools, leaving lawyers a little bit hungry for something that technology cannot really give them. Lawyers want to be empowered to thrive alongside AI, and that's something I see every day at Legal Creatives. And this is why I'm so excited to welcome Lucy and Aneta to talk a little bit about skill sets, culture, human-centered processes, how to redesign first. We're going to learn so much. I'm so excited for this show. So maybe Lucy, you want to introduce yourself, and then Aneta, and then we'll dive into the conversation.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody, and thanks so much for having me. Olga, Tessa, super excited about this topic. By way of background, I spent most of my career in-house at Microsoft. I say most, as time goes, the balance starts to shift. Then for the last about 7 years, I've been running a niche consultancy focused on helping corporate law departments become more efficient, innovative, and of course, using the right technology. So this topic is squarely at the top of my favorites list. Thanks so much for having me. Can't wait to dive in.
Hello, I'm Aneta Baranowska. I'm based in Poland. And I work both in-house and running my own consultancy, mostly dealing with legal tech and legal design processes. So I'm super excited to discuss with the experts alongside. Thank you for having me. And first of all, thank you for inviting me to present the case studies in the book. I encourage everyone to familiarize with visual law.
I love this. Well, let's get started. Let's start with much needed reality check on the industry. Lucy, you recently noted that despite the explosion of AI native legal tech software, the average corporate lawyer is still completely miserable. Why is more technology failing to solve in-house bottlenecks? And why do you argue that process reengineering really must come first?
Well, not to sound like a broken record, but I am a broken record. I can't keep singing the same song for much longer. It doesn't matter what kind of technology comes to the market, whether it's 10 years ago and what was happening with legal tech then, or the most recent explosion in the last couple of years with AI. The tech itself is not the answer. You have to, in-house, you have to take the time to understand what is the actual core problem that you're hoping the tech will solve. And you have to do that. Most people think it's unsexy. I find it very sexy. You have to do the homework of your own processes to understand how does it work today? What is actually broken and where the tech can fit. You can't go shopping for technology before you understand your own processes. Now, this all sounds also very fluffy talk. It actually isn't actionable for a lot of attorneys who are listening to this. So let me give a very, very simple analogy. When Uber and Air and Lyft, whatever, no, I don't care which one you use. When rideshare popped onto the market and we all downloaded the app in our phone. And the problem we had is I had to get from my house to the supermarket. That's, let's say, the problem. And now I have an Uber app on my phone. Great, I have the tech. It doesn't magically transport me. I still have to open the app. I have to know to place my destination. I also have to pick which kind of car I want. I have to decide if waiting to save is going to work for me. There's a million little decisions I still have to make in this most user friendly app that's right there in my hands. That's exactly how in-house lawyers feel the minute they light up a new piece of tech on their desktop. Oh, okay, what do I need to do now with it? That gap, it hasn't been filled and it won't be filled with technology. There is still the pre-work and that manual prep that has to be done to make good use of the tech. That's the easiest analogy I can come up with. A lawyer, piece of tech, no different than my mom being handed a new iPhone with the Uber app and saying, good, go to the store, Mom. I'll see you there. That's how it feels.
Yeah, I love that. This is just, I love this analogy because I'm always using, all those really disruptive companies, Uber, Airbnb, and there's so many more now, to demystify and how we can innovate in the legal field. But even talking about innovation, it's mostly talking about how we can increase efficiency, how we can improve the customer experience, and integrate technology doing so. And Aneta, you work at the intersection of legal. You use plain language, you use legal design, you use legal ops. I mean, you do so much, Aneta. I'm so proud to have you with us today. You've taken our programs and you've been such a standout graduate. You've literally run with everything you've learned, and you have accomplished so much, including a legal innovation conference, which became a flagship program in your country, in Poland. So I'd love to know more about when you are tasked with implementing new technologies, whether it's AI or e-signature or something else. How do you bridge the gap between the software and the people who actually have to use the technology? Tell us, what does it look like in practice?
Sure. Thank you very much for your kind words, Tessa. And yeah, I familiarize a lot with what Lucy said about being like a broken record, because I am also a broken record. I keep saying we have to ask questions. We have to ask our users what they need. We have to ask our clients what they need. And then we have to ask ourselves, what do we really want to accomplish with the technology, with the new process? What's the problem? What's the challenge we need to solve? I never start with chasing after a particular piece of tech. or a particular deployer of the technology, if someone tells me that we need to have this, then I'm trying to go backwards with that person, asking a lot of questions, to really have the plain image, like the full image of the process they are working on, the challenges they are trying to solve. And with lawyers, especially with in-house lawyers, it always works two ways. What I mean by that is, like I mentioned at the beginning, we not only need to dive into the possibilities and challenges of our internal clients, but we also need to take a very close look about how we are working. And is the new tool really is it going to help us change the processes, for example, that are inefficient, or are they going just to make the old same processes even more stable and not changeable at all? So yeah, I'm asking a lot of questions.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, the power of questions, that's where everything starts, creativity included. And a massive element of the new book, Visual Literacy for Lawyers, is about changing also how a legal document, fundamentally communicates using visual elements, using clear, plain language. And Aneta, I know you have certifications in both. So I'd love to know, as a contract and legal practitioner, what is the kind of feedback you get from your peers, but also from the business users when using these elements, visuals, plain language? And if you want to talk a little bit more about those amazing case studies we have in the book, the legal icon dictionary you built, or the terms of use for your conferences, feel free to also, I don't know, sparkle some insights from those that are in the book.
Okay, so let me start with peers, because as lawyers always say, it depends. So there are some peers that are very keen on using both the plain language and the visual elements, especially when we clarify between each other that by visual elements, I don't mean that it has to be like a comic contract or very advanced graphics. It might be, for some cases, we know the brilliant examples of that kind of visual work in law, but it doesn't have to be always that. We need to, just dive into the needs and then decide what kind of elements we can apply. So sometimes it's difficult, especially for us lawyers. It's very hard to unlearn the old habits. I think it's easier to start with the language. Language is our superpower. As lawyers, we use it all the time, and we really can do some magic with the language we use. So sometimes I feel it's easier to convince my peers first to use the plain language, and then maybe we can build a bridge between the plain language and the visual elements. Why? If we take a look, for example, at the ISO norm, on the plain language, we see that there are not only linguistic elements included in this norm. The first rule actually is usability. And for example, people need to find the information that they need quickly and easily. I think there is no strict, like a thick line between those two, like plain language rules and visual elements. We need to mix both according to the needs of the user we are creating for. With the legal icon dictionary, we also asked a lot of questions before we even started working on the project, because we started with asking lawyers. Actually, we just used LinkedIn to see if lawyers are actually interested in, if they see the need of that kind of materials. And we find out that it is very interesting for them, and it could be helpful, because sometimes, even if someone is encouraged to dive deeper into legal design, into the methodology, into the tools, it might be hard to use them. For example, from my own practice, I wanted to use icons in Office, and having those thousands of icons to choose, and a very difficult kind of search tool for them. I was very frustrated in trying to choose the icons for the legal documents, not to lose clarity, not to lose precision, and to really enhance the understandability of the document. So that's why I decided that we need a tool for lawyers exactly. So that's how the project with the legal icon dictionary started.
I love it. I love what you said, that words are something that lawyers use to create magic. I never thought of it this way. I love the way you think, and the words you use. Lucy, you bring 25 years of enterprise experience to the table. Every conversation I've had with you have been very enlightening. And you know firsthand how much legal ops relies on mapping processes to drive efficiency. And as visual tools evolve, do you see enterprise teams actively using visual mapping and standardized icons to transform their workflows? Or is the culture still heavily anchored in sort of black and white documents and text dense, SOPs? And more importantly, how do you show stakeholders the actual value of changing those deeply ingrained habits?
Sure. You know what? I'm going to just jump quickly to the concept of how we love words and how we use words to make magic. Sometimes we use too many words. And that, let me rephrase, always. Lawyers seem to always use too many words. I think the short answer to the question, of whether we are moving towards better visualization is not fast enough, for sure. We really are still just stuck in the black and white paper and words. I'm afraid that our profession also takes itself perhaps a little bit too seriously. I was looking at the words in your intro music and some of that guidance that said, hey, we have a very serious job, but that doesn't mean we should take ourselves too seriously. I still think as a profession we do. And I think there's a perception that if we start using more imagery or icons or visualization, I'm afraid there's a natural reflex that a lot of lawyers have, that then it's not a serious document. That's unfortunate, and that will require change over time. Our profession is going through a huge attack on the way we do things, and from every angle. And the technology is really, really pushing us to rethink how we do things. But I'm afraid that at the core, the profession is still very much tied to its ways of doing, words on paper. Still, even the concepts of, disaggregating the words, extracting data and insights from the words on paper, still a little bit contrary or in conflict to the way that most commercial lawyers see their jobs. So I would like to see the move towards more visualization. To get to the second part of your question about how do we show value, the first place to start, I think, visualizing is mapping the process. Just simply turning our day jobs into a series of boxes and rectangles and diamonds and triangles on a paper with arrows, moving us through that how we do things today view. That is even still a bit challenging. The best way to show value, though, for visualizing a workflow on a flow chart, in an image, is to show people kind of that chaos on paper. I think once attorneys see their day job in a mapped workflow process, and they see so many boxes and so many arrows, and then they see loops, then they start realizing, wait, why do we keep redoing these things? Why do we keep going back and forth? This looks messy. And suddenly the light bulb goes off. Yes, it is messy. And you can't just anecdotally show the mess without showing the mess on paper. So I think the first step to helping really visualize for lawyers is just visualizing the process. Then the next step could be, okay, now let's visualize the actual documents themselves. How do we break down a document into a more visual kind of view, a more, I don't know, pleasing view to the eye? Because right now, 20, 30, 50 pages of black and white font, that's not visually pleasing at all. It's not visually interesting at all. So it's a journey, and I think the first step starts with visualizing the process and kind of the flow of things, whether it's a document or or the process steps, to be able to have attorneys react in a natural way that's like, wow, oh, I didn't realize it was that complex. I think that is the best way to show value. You have to let it speak for itself, but many don't even know where to start. And I think that the kind of book that you all have written, I hope will help spark that curiosity. Say, wow, I never really thought about it as a visual. I never thought to visualize the process or the documents themselves. That's the best way to show value. You can't force it. It has to speak for itself. And I've seen that happen.
I love that. By the way, I'm choosing diamonds. You're boxes and circles, diamonds all the way.
100%. 100%.
I love that. Well, let's look toward the future. Legal market right now is completely flooded with, salad, right? Word salad. Everyone is claiming to be AI first, automated, AI native. I don't even know what that means, but okay. I just, those are the two words I would not put together. But as AI takes over high volume contract drafting, there's a real danger of generating more unreadable, unreliable text faster, sooner, cheaper than ever before. So, Aneta, looking at this from tech implementation and compliance standpoints, when generative AI spins out massive blocks of legal clauses, how do we keep the final output human-centered? How do we ensure that AI tools are trained to make contracts more, I don't know, usable rather than just complexifying them into more boilerplate legalese?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like I mentioned, it is hard for lawyers to unlearn some habits, for example, in terms of languages. But for AI, it's very easy to turn into the different direction. But we are the ones that have to point into the right direction. So if, for example, we want to use AI tool to generate examples of clauses or even a simple contract template, okay, we can ask and see what it gives us. Probably it will be a block of legalese. And if we don't want that, it depends on us what kind of prompts we use, what kind of directions we give to the tool. For example, if we don't want to make it make the same instructions every time. Me personally, in my practice, I use agent for plain language. I gave instructions, I gave rules, I gave documents that it can rely on, and I am maybe more. Of course, I am more enthusiastic and maybe more familiar with the rules of plain language. So it's easier for me to even start working that way from scratch. But for my colleagues, it might be helpful to use that kind of tool and see what they can change and gradually build the new habits. So it's on us people again, and it's always about humans. And I hope it will always be about humans and relations. It's about us to point the tools into the right direction. If we feed AI with the jargon, with the legalese, with the block of text, with no ideas for visualization of legal documents, then we will get it back and it's a very, very dangerous loop that we don't want to dive in. So again, our responsibility as humans.
Yeah, this is so great, Aneta. I love this because we tend to, we've heard this conversation, AI is going to replace lawyers. Well, no, because as you've just mentioned, Aneta, AI is more like an assistant. So you're giving it tasks, it's like an intern. You're giving a task, you're giving requirements, you're giving instructions, and then you evaluate the work, you review, you assess.
Okay.
And so when, if I think familiarizing yourself with plain language or even the visualization part really helps do that review, because without the knowledge, then AI can do pretty like crazy stuff. So we don't want that to happen. So we want to review, and to review, we need to prompt well, and we need to also have the knowledge to do that critical evaluation and have that critical judgment of the output. And so, Lucy, I'm really looking forward to hear from you from like more that macro look at the enterprise trends. So now we see, there are so many legal tech tools available, but it seems to me that most, if not all of them, they're very much focused on the back-end automation, whether it's a contract automation or now the agents automating legal processes and legal workflows. But how about the user experience? How about the lawyers in the law firm or in the legal department? And how about the business user? It seems to me we kind of forgetting a little bit. It's all AI, it's all tech. Well, what about the humans? So in your experience, how can we make sure these tools are actually supporting the business users, supporting legal practitioners in the day-to-day, and in reducing the friction, whether it's commercial friction or legal friction or business friction? Can you enlighten us with your massive experience in this field?
Of course, absolutely. I mean, the answer is it's not a sexy answer. The answer to the people problem is bringing in people into these tech solutions and products, experts that understand the nature of the work as well as the potential for the technology. That intersection continues to be the biggest gap. I feel that largely the users, and I've said this again, like a broken record, the actual users, the attorneys themselves, they're largely forgotten. We hear all the time, built by lawyers for lawyers, all the tech, built by lawyers for lawyers. Great, built by lawyers. Maybe somebody with some experience at some point spent a little time, and that's okay, and that's good for marketing. We like when the founders have some hands-on time and experience, but very few have lived and breathed the pain that the lawyers have year over year as a big part of their career before going to solve. Some have, and those are interesting technologies. The reality is, regardless of who builds it or what background they have, the gap continues in that the buyers and the users themselves are still simply not ready for a lot of this technology. They aren't ready because they're busy day to day doing their job the way they were trained to do it. And that gap that we've been talking about this whole time and continue to kind of beat the drums on is that the buyers don't know how to buy the tech in a way that's going to make it actually impactful for them at the beginning. There's a journey that comes with these technologies. And oftentimes the buyers, again, let's call them the users, the lawyers, they're left to their own devices. They're catered to during the sales process, they're marketed to. Everything sounds great and good. But once that tech is actually live in their enterprise, in their infrastructure, they're often left to their own devices. And that's where frustration immediately starts, resentment, and then the technology is being blamed. So what I am excited about and that I'm seeing, and I think is an answer to really the short question of what do these tech products need to do to make the tech actually useful, actually impactful, they need to bring in people that are going to bridge the gap between the tech and the users. And we're seeing that now. It's now become sexy to say, human in the loop, legal engineer jobs. Love these new words. Talk about word salad. If you read the description, it's the thing that we've needed all along. It's the connector between the user and the technology. Somebody who's actually going to align the problems and the pain points at the buyer to the solution that's being offered. Sometimes there's a complete disconnect. Oftentimes there's a disconnect because these humans don't exist. These connectors don't exist. So I'm seeing, I think, what is a positive trend. We've also heard forward deployed engineers, which is a very tech type of a concept that is now being adopted by legal tech, but calling it different things. And I think legal engineers, the popular name right now for these roles. I think the short answer is you're going to have to bring the right humans in the loop. Not a whole lot of them. I am not proposing that all of these tech startups have a huge human cost on their P&L sheets. We know the VC founders are not going to like that. And there's a lot of awkward behavior happening right now with the crazy amount of VC money that is pushing, a good P&L, a good balance sheet. And at the same time, I think finally allowing a little bit more people costs to come into that balance sheet. And by balance sheet, I'm being very, very technical. I'm obviously talking about that balance of resources between human and tech, not just investing in more and more engineers, but bringing in people that are, quote, legal engineers. They're actually not technical folks. They are subject matter experts. So I think I'm seeing that trend. I'm hopeful that I'm seeing that trend. It's kind of a reverse to what we heard for the last 10 years, right? No humans, all tech, all automated. It's all, it's all tech. It never was. The humans were just hidden inside of these tech companies. And I think now they're being highlighted as a feature. I think it's a good sign. The future will tell us. And also we will see, I think, a bit of a shakeup amongst the providers. We can't have this many in the space forever. We just can't. So I think those that are going to solve that problem of filling the gap, and you have actual consumption that grows at these tech companies, and you have renewed contracts with consumption over years, those are going to be the winners, not just the ones that are signing very big logos and proudly announcing those on LinkedIn, although good for them. But it's not about that. It's the longevity that I'm looking for. I want to see the consumption. I want to see the renewed. I want to see the growth and the expansion at the buyer, at the customer over time. It's too young to prove that yet. So that's where I'm looking. And I think humans on the tech side are going to be the answer to fill the gap. And I think that's the reality.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that really brings us full circle with Aneta talking about, keeping the human at the center. It's not just AI. It's also what we can do with the AI and how we can thrive with AI and how we can be empowered with it. And so I'd love to wrap things up to ask each of you, what is like an easy, quick act of visual leadership that our audience could do tomorrow? Like something quick, simple, impactful, like a quick tip you would like to give the audience. Maybe we can start with Lucy and then Aneta.
Sure. Again, this never goes out of style. It never will go out of style. I want every lawyer to take 5 minutes in the morning with their cup of coffee and on a piece of paper with a pen or a pencil, map out today's painful contracting process today. Write out how it works today, not how it should and not how they'd like it to, but actually how does a contract flow today from their internal business partner to the legal team and on to signature. I would just want them to draw a picture. I dare them. I inspire them to please see if you can actually write down how it works today. That's my hope.
Okay, that's a good advice. I'll take it for me as well. But what I would say is to take a small step, like every day, like Lucy said, for example, 5 minutes to take a small step, like redesign a sentence, even a small block in a contract or a document, and then ask your user, how do they feel about it? Does it change anything? Is it more understandable? Just take a small step. Don't jump into a big process, the most hectic one, the most difficult one. No, start with a simple thing and then ask the feedback.
I love that. This is such a great discussion. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. We're done. We've come to the end of this conversation. It's been a fantastic conversation. Uh, Lucy, Aneta, and Tessa, thank you so much for sharing your insights and experiences and giving advice to the audience. I really appreciate it. And and your refreshing honesty and just I just love it. I'm still thinking about the magic of words and drawing things with my first cup of coffee, maybe the second. Maybe I'll start drawing after coffee number 2. That's probably a better place to start. And more of that incredible expertise and advice in our new ABA book, Visual Literacy for Lawyers. Check it out. We're very proud of it. We love the way it looks. If you wonder, we really love the cover. And if you want to see the exact case studies and visual frameworks Lucy and Aneta just discussed and shared with us, head over to visualiqforlawyers.com to order your copy of the book and check out their case studies and 20 plus others entirely free. You can use them. It may be a good thing to read with your first cup of coffee. So your second cup of coffee, when you actually draw, goes down much smoother. And to all your audience, thank you so much for joining. Stay tuned for next episode. More to come. We will be having more conversations about visual design and how to streamline your legal work. Bye-bye.
Thank you for stopping by. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Notes to My Legal Self. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They are an act of courage. Remember, the future of law is bright. Enjoy your in-house practice. It's an adventure of a lifetime. See you soon.